Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Junior Achievement of Kansas Personal Finance Symposium. This is session 5 on consumer protection. We'd like to thank our sponsors that have supported the Personal Finance Symposium and allowed it to happen this year. And those sponsors are United Way of Greater Topeka, Capital Federal, Security Benefit, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Kansas, Washburn University, and the Kansas Insurance Education Foundation. So at this point in time, I am going to be turning this session over to Dr. David Sollars. He is the Dean of the School of Business at Washburn University and is again going to be talking to you today about consumer protection.
Well, good morning. Try to make this work here. Are we good?
You're good.
All right, hang on. Okay. Well, again, my name is David Sollars, and I'm very pleased to be with you all this morning and to be able to share some information. You know, we live in a world that is very much interconnected. When I was growing up, we didn't have computers. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have lots of things that we take for granted now. And in some ways, we enjoy all the interconnections that we have now. We enjoy our internet. We enjoy our cell phones. We enjoy our social media. We enjoy all those things. We enjoy shopping online. We enjoy applying for things online and doing all those type of things. But all that has some downsides as well. And this morning, we want to talk about making sure that you as a future or as a current and a future consumer are protected, because unfortunately, all those benefits out there create opportunities for the bad guys and gals to steal information, to steal money from you, and to do other things that we need to protect ourselves against. We talk about something called cybersecurity, and really cybersecurity is nothing more than trying to protect the things that we do online, in the cloud, in the web, whatever you want to call it. And so we have to protect computers, we have to protect servers, and we have to protect all kinds of things out there that are places that share information. But we also got to protect our cell phones and our tablets and our computers, at not only at work or school, but also at home. Because every time, believe it or not, every time you do something online, you touch your phone, you turn it on, someone's recording that. Right now, if you have your phone with you, Apple or Samsung know exactly where you are. And you know, people don't like to believe that, but that's actually true. We monitor these things. They monitor these things. They collect tons and tons and tons of data. So we always have to be able to protect ourselves in this crazy world. A new thing it's not that new. It's been around for many decades, but something that's easier to do now for the bad guys is to steal your identity. And that's the problem when someone basically takes on your persona, either online or in the financial world, and begins to do things that benefit them financially, but hurt you financially. And so it's things like using your Social Security number to apply for unemployment benefits. Believe it or not, that happened to me about 3 months ago. I got a letter from the Department of Labor saying that I had applied for unemployment benefits. Well, I had not applied for unemployment benefits, but someone had my Social Security number and my payroll information. And it took about 2 days for me to stop some of that. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. But it's also using things like your credit card numbers and other personal information, even things like your birthdays, and your online persona, your online information, your social media information can also be used to steal your identity. We'll also talk about things dealing with, you know, kind of how to protect yourselves, how to monitor your situation. You know, in some ways, if someone's trying to steal from you, but you're watching, they're less likely to steal from you. So, and if you can solve the problem earlier, it's usually a better deal. So that's what we're going to talk about today. All right. We have some fact or fiction that we have to talk about. Some people think, if we have a strong password, you're safe. And that may or may not be the case. You're safer with a strong password, but actually, it's fiction. Strong passwords can still be stolen, and we just have to be aware of that. Now, not strong passwords like your name plus 123 is not a strong password. That's pretty easy to steal. But even a strong password with all the funny letters and numbers and capitals and stuff like that, that can still be stolen. Some people think that you can only be hacked if you're not using a browser. Well, guess what? You can be hacked. Your phone can be hacked. Other applications on your computer or your phone can be hacked. Just not, Safari or Chrome or whatever it is that you're using as your browser. While it's a good idea to have antivirus software on your computer and on your phone, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're 100% safe. It's kind of like the coronavirus in the sense that it seems to get to places that we don't think it's going to show up. So even if you have antivirus software, which you should have, because you will eliminate most of the problems, it doesn't mean that you don't have to do anything else. The other thing is that, the viruses and the hackers are so good that what they can do is install something on your phone or on your tablet or on your computer that will unfortunately work in the background. And when you start to share information or type in information, it will be sending that information to someone else. And you don't want to have that happen to you. And your phone can be hacked, your tablet can be hacked, a lot of things can be hacked. And you just have to be careful out there and using all the electronic devices. We all have phones, we all have tablets, things that we use, and we have to be very careful. Okay, so after we get done with this session, we're going to be able to learn to protect our online information. We're going to talk about something called a credit report and see how it can identify suspicious activity related to your finances, and also recognize some risk of sharing your finances with other people. Okay, I have a little video here we're going to watch, and so please pay attention and we'll come back and talk about it.
Meet Dan. Dan has been working as a corporate co-engineer for the past 6 years. Recently, Dan applied for a new credit card, only to find a few days later that he was denied. Understandably, Dan is stunned. He's always been careful with his credit and has a good, stable income. What gives? Well, there are a few possibilities. Some of them are benign, like Dan not meeting an unusual credit card company policy. Others, however, are not as great, in particular, identity theft. This is when someone steals your personal information, like a social security number, and then uses it to do everything from opening credit cards, to getting new loans, to stealing your tax refund, all in your name. While this is certainly bad enough, the other problem with identity theft is that even though the accounts are in your name, you may not get the bill for them. This can make it incredibly difficult to discover the crime, and thus it's not uncommon to find out like Dan did, through an oddly denied application. In fact, there's really only one sure way to find out if you've been a victim of identity theft: your credit report, simply because it details every account you've ever opened, willingly or not. If you're not sure what this report is or how to get it, be sure to check out our video, Credit Scores Reports 101, as well as the free website annualcreditreport.com. But let's assume Dan understands his report and just checked it. What did he find? Well, sure enough, Dan found 3 mysterious credit card accounts, all with massive overdue payments. Dan is at a loss. What should he do? Well, his first step is actually his only step. Go to the free federal website identitytheft.gov. This website is fantastic. Not only is it incredibly easy to use and navigate, but it's also comprehensive, walking you through step by step exactly what you need to do to resolve any type of identity theft problem. In fact, it's so good, it allows us to skip ahead to our final topic, the 10 rules Dan and everyone else needs to follow to avoid future identity theft and fraud. Rule 1. Check your credit report at least once a year for suspicious activity. If you see some, don't delay. Go to identitytheft.gov immediately. Rule 2. Regularly check your monthly statements and bills for suspicious charges. In addition, if you can, try to go paperless, as these documents are much harder to steal in their online form. Rule 3. Shred all personal and financial documents before putting them in the trash. Rule 4. Keep any personal and financial records you don't want to shred, like your tax returns or social security card, in a safe place. Rule 5. Be incredibly suspicious when someone asks you to wire money. It's the modern day equivalent of paying in cash, and thus almost impossible to get back or trace. No wonder it's a con artist's favorite. Rule 6. Don't respond to emails, texts, or phone calls asking you for your personal or financial information, even if they seem official, like an email from your bank. If you're truly concerned, avoid the message and instead call the financial institution directly. Rule 7. Always shield your PIN and password whenever you enter them. Rule 8. Use strong passwords and make sure your computer is protected by a strong firewall and up-to-date antivirus and anti-malware protection. Rule 9. Whenever shopping online, be sure to check the beginning of the URL for a little green lock. This indicates the site is secure. Finally, Rule 10. Don't click on sketchy internet job offers, like those promising you a guaranteed amount of income while working from home. These are scams, plain and simple. Hopefully you and Dan now better understand how to avoid and deal with fraud and identity theft. If you want to see more educational material or our financial product recommendations, be sure to check out our website.
Okay, that seemed like a lot of rules, but unfortunately, that's the world that we live in. And to be smart in today's world, you have to be able to protect yourself. Now, I can share some examples of things that have happened to me or my family. I got a call once from my mother. My mother is older, and she got a call. She had received a call from someone who sounded like her granddaughter, but she wasn't quite sure. And basically, the scam was that they wanted my daughter's grandmother, my mother, to wire money to bail my daughter out of jail, because she had allegedly been arrested for a DUI. That's kind of scary, actually. The problem is my daughter doesn't drink, and the idea that she'd have a DUI didn't make any sense. So, and unfortunately, my mother was so gullible and helpful. She actually tried to figure out a way to try to wire the money. And fortunately, she lived in a small town up in the Northwoods of Minnesota where they didn't have that ability. So that didn't happen. She called me and we solved the problem. But those type of things happen. Or one time in the past, someone stole some information out of our trash that had some personal information on it, and that was later used to buy things online. So you always have to be careful. The one that drives people crazy are the emails that we get from people that look exactly like they're coming from a place like Microsoft, or they're coming from Apple, or they're coming from our bank, or they're coming from a reputable institution. I get emails at work sometimes that look like they come from Washburn University. Guess what? They don't come from Washburn University, but they always want you to click here. And when you click there, sometimes you're downloading malware. Sometimes you're just going to a site where they're going to try to sell you something. So you always want to protect yourself. All those things. So there were those 10 rules. We already talked about many of them, but you always want to be careful that you are always protecting yourself. So what are some of the do's, just to reiterate? That basically you got to keep your information private. Your phone number, your address, your social security number, keep those off of your social media accounts. Now, most people don't put them up there, but it happens. People do crazy things like that. You always want to make sure your passwords are complicated. Lowercase, uppercase, letters, those type of things. This is hard because you're supposed to use a different password for each account. I looked the other day, I have 138 websites or accounts that require me to log in. If I had to keep 138 passwords in my brain, it would be hard. Now, sometimes our software, if you have Apple products, they will store that information for you, which is kind of scary in and of itself. But in any case, try to use different passwords, especially on your main accounts. Your bank account should have your best password, your strongest password, for example. What are some don'ts? Believe it or not, if you go to a restaurant or go to a Starbucks or are using a public Wi-Fi, even at a place like the library, you got to be careful because they are less safe than your home or maybe at your school. And actually, hackers have a way to steal the information that's going across the wires or across the air in those Wi-Fi networks. So you want to be careful. You should always think before you share anything online. And this just isn't about financial information or passwords or personal things. Always be careful about what you're going to put online because it will come back to haunt you someday, unfortunately. And because everything you do online is stored somewhere. You may think you delete it. You may think it's gone. It's still there, and you want to make sure that you always have it under control. So always be careful about what you put online. Sometimes when we are going somewhere, vacation, hey, I'm going to Hawaii for 2 weeks. You put that on Twitter or Facebook or somewhere else, or you get to a place and you post the images of being there online. I'm in Hawaii. What are you telling criminals out there? There's no one at my house. Come take my stuff. So always be careful about those type of things. And you probably never want to post yourself doing anything that kind of reflects badly on your work. People sometimes do crazy things online, or they take pictures, or they have videos of crazy things, and they're wearing their work outfit. I'm wearing my Mr. Ichabod right now. That would identify me as a Washburn employee or a Washburn supporter. And if I did something crazy online, someone would sure enough take a picture and we get back to President Farley at Washburn, and maybe I'd have to find a different job. So not that I do crazy things, but you understand that point. Okay. Keep in mind what identity theft is. A crime that occurs when someone uses your name, your social security number, your credit card, or your other personal information without your permission. And that can occur in a variety of different ways. One of the best ways we have to protect ourselves, though, is to use something called a credit report. And we'll talk more about that in just a second. Let me get back on my right screen here. Hang on. You guys are better at this stuff than I am, obviously. Okay. There are 3 major consumer reporting agencies out there, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Anytime you open an account, a bank account, anytime you rent rent an apartment, anytime you buy something with a loan, anytime you get a credit card or a store card somewhere, all that information is going to be captured by all 3 of these agencies, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. In fact, for example, if you we're going to try to get an apartment, the landlord is likely to request a credit report on you through Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. That's what they do. Now, under federal law, you can get a copy of your credit report from each of these agencies every 12 months. So what a lot of people do is maybe every 4 months, they get a different credit report from one of the agencies. Then they do that on a cycle. You can go online and get that information, and it's free. It doesn't cost anything. Why is it important? Because sometimes what you're going to find in that credit report is that there's inaccurate information. Someone has maybe opened an account in your name and you're using your personal information, and that's when you find it out. Or maybe there's something that's almost true or not quite true, but you can always fix it. And in fact, you're required by the credit agencies are required by law to investigate any disputes. Now, all that information, all that credit reporting agency actually goes into something called a FICO score. And I'm thinking that maybe you've already talked with someone about FICO scores. But that's, how that judges your credit worthiness, and something that is important. Okay. What I'd like you to do is spend just a couple minutes, and I see a couple, maybe 2 or 3 students on here. Can you guys hear me? Can you say hi? No? Okay. Well, in any case, what I would like you to do is spend just a few minutes to take a look here and see if you can find any examples of suspicious behavior. Okay, let's begin over here with a credit report. Like I said, a credit report, they're more complicated than what this looks like, but they're very complex, and they're very detailed. And they know if you've had late payments, all kinds of crazy stuff. But if you look down here, if this was your credit report, the fact that you might have a car loan maybe makes some sense. The fact that you have a student loan maybe makes some sense. But suppose you didn't have a payday loan. Payday loans are the worst place to borrow money. Basically, you go in and borrow money for a week or two or a month even. They charge it terrible interest rates. But suppose you got your credit report and you said, yeah, I got a car payment. I'm paying off my student loan, but I didn't apply for a payday loan. Someone has hacked your information. Someone's used your information. So you'd want to report that to the credit bureau and see if you can get that fixed. If you look at the phone here, here's one of the problems. People put crazy things on the internet, especially if they're mad about work or their girlfriend or boyfriend or their parents. So this poor person talks about, hey, my boss is annoying. I'm looking for another job. I think I'll call in sick. Ha ha, hope your boss doesn't see this. Well, guess what? Your boss maybe sees it, or if your boss doesn't see it, maybe one of your coworkers sees it and shares it with the boss. And guess what? Now you're looking for another job because you don't have a job. So you always want to be careful about what you're putting up on Twitter and Instagram and all those other things that you use out there. Suppose you do have a credit card. Let's look down here at the bottom. Suppose you do have a credit card. What's key here is that, and you're a student at Washburn, let's say. Well, I guess in Denver, at school in Denver, you'd probably spend money at the bookstore. That would make sense. Maybe you spent money at the campus coffee shop. That would make sense. Maybe you turned your library book in late and you got late fees. That would make sense. It's probably unlikely you were in a golf tournament at the Senior Citizen Center in Florida, or that you shopped at Big and Tall Shoe Emporium in Florida. So crazy things like that will pop up on a credit card every once in a while, and you have to be careful. The nice thing about today's world is that it works, that things can work to our advantage as well. One night, my wife and I were at a hotel in another city, and on her Discover cards, it popped up that she just bought a $500 plane ticket. Well, guess what? She hadn't bought a $500 plane ticket. Discover is pretty good about letting you know when big transactions occur. So we immediately called Southwest Airlines and had that fixed. But you can also use some of those safety features in your favor. Here's a really tricky one. You get an official looking letter from your bank, and it wants to verify your information, your social security number, your account password. This is a scam. Basically, what they're trying to do is make sure they have your information, because even if that information was wrong and you responded back to them, you probably give them your right information. That's really what they want. So you want to avoid those type of crazy things. Now, in your own time, you can probably get together and share some experiences about, how you can protect yourself. Here's another problem that people have, and that's when we share finances. Now, it's hard enough when you're married to someone and you're sharing finances because everything is kind of joint together. But oftentimes young people will try to share finances. And what do we mean by that? Maybe you open up a checking account together. Maybe you and a roommate open up a checking account together. Maybe you and a brother or sister decide you're going to share a car. So you open up an account together to be able to share the car. Maybe you don't quite qualify, or you have a friend that doesn't quite qualify for the use of credit cards, and you do. So they ask, can I have one of your credit cards? Can you put me on as a user? Or maybe you ask your parents, or maybe you have your parents co-sign a loan for you. You have to be really careful. Family members may want the convenience of a shared bank account to pay bills. For a while, my daughters shared our credit cards with us when they were younger. And then sometimes we want to help people make loans, or we ask our parents to help us make loans, or to get loans, I'm sorry. What's the worst thing that can happen? Well, guess what? If you got both names on the bank account, either party can clean out the bank account. Okay, it doesn't matter, one party or the other. So today I could walk into my bank, take all the money from my wife, and she couldn't do anything about it. Likewise, she could do the same thing to me. Fortunately, we're not going anywhere, and we love each other, but that can happen. Credit cards. Suppose someone is not authorized, or someone's authorized to be on your credit card, and they go out and they buy $10,000 worth of stuff. Who's responsible for that? Are they? No, you are, because you're the main account holder. And the same thing goes for loans. People that help other people borrow money, oftentimes someone quits paying, you're stuck with the loan amount. So you want to avoid that if at all possible. So you always want to be careful. Are people honest? Do both parties trust each other? Do both parties treat each other as equals? Do you know each other? Now, maybe that works with your inner family, a brother or sister or a mom and dad or children. But it usually doesn't work so well with other people. So you have to be very, very, very careful. And it doesn't always work with families, unfortunately. Okay. In your documents, there's something called the consumer protection document. And there's a section at the bottom that talks about sharing financial decisions. You're supposed to read the scenarios and really create a little tip sheet for someone who's thinking about borrowing money with other people, or joining finances with other people. There are 3 scenarios. Tell you what I'll do. I'll let you spend a little bit of your own time maybe to go through that in detail. But basically, they're common scenarios. 2 roommates who want to share an apartment. They renewed their lease. Every month they got to kind of put money together, and one's going to deposit the other's check. So they're like, hey, why don't we just open a joint bank account and to solve our problem? The second scenario is a mother is going to make her teenage daughter a authorized user on a credit card. So the daughter can, maybe buy a plane ticket or do some other things. And then the third scenario is a young couple. Maybe they're married, not married, but they want to buy a car together. Usually your ability to get a loan for a car is determined by your income. And oftentimes an individual person does not have the ability to make that loan themselves. So they share they have a joint income with someone else, and they will be able to get the loan in that case. So all those things are important, and those scenarios there basically provide the information that you would need to think about that would, either raise red flags or help you to make some decisions in your own life about what you might do with some of these other folks. Okay. I shared the information earlier a little bit about me. Now, I'm a lot older than most everyone here, and I've gone through a lot of financial things in my life. My credit report comes in about 50 pages. It goes back to the time when I was 18 years old. So every bank account I ever had, any loan account, in fact, I enjoyed going back and looking at all the cars I bought over my lifetime, all the different credit cards that we've had, all the different revolving bank accounts, or I'm sorry, all the different bank accounts, all the store credit cards that we had. Looking back at some of the balances on those, I had two daughters and my wife, and they were all Victoria's Secret fans. So they bought a lot of stuff at Victoria's Secret. And I remember one month the balance was $500, and I kind of flipped out. But your credit report, it will follow you. Someday you might want to get a job where your financial worthiness is important. Maybe it's at a bank, maybe it's at a financial institution, maybe it's just a place where they have to really trust you. And if they run, a credit report or run some other background information, things that aren't good in your life will show up. And you always have to be careful because those things are hard to remove later on. So having vigilance every step of the way, looking at your bank account statements every month, and it's easy to do now. You can look at them online. You can set up different programs. I use something called mint.com, for example. So every day I can look at all my 34 different financial accounts that I have. Some of them are not even used anymore, but they're still there, and I keep them simply because I might need them down the road. But if something pops up there, I know that someone has stolen my identity. They've committed a crime, and then I can follow up with it. Like I said, a few months ago, I think I saw the other day that maybe 100,000 people in Kansas have had their identity stolen so that people could apply for unemployment benefits. It was no fun to get that in the mail and then have to call and wait for 3 hours on the phone, and then have to go through all the different checklists that you go through, calling all the financial institutions, filling out reports. And doing those type of things is no fun. And I don't know who had my Social Security number. Apparently they were going to deposit money into a bank account I don't know anything about. So it was obviously a theft. Had to call the credit bureaus and then place credit alerts and then credit freezes on all my accounts. It's just the world we live in, and especially for you as young adults who are going to go on and do enter this world. You have to be very, very careful and be willing to protect yourself at every step of the way. So be careful with your emails. Be careful with your passwords. Be careful with, be especially careful with your Social Security number. Just be smart about money. Being smart about money makes. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Ashley and see if there are any questions or any additional things that I can share.